Hi, everyone. I'm Arijit Sengupta, the founder and CEO of Aible. Before this, I started a company called BeyondCore, which was acquired by Salesforce to become Salesforce Einstein Discovery. I co-created and taught a class on AI in market-facing functions at the Harvard Business School. So been in this space for a couple of decades now. Aible is rated #1 in automated machine learning by Gartner. And Forrester has pointed us as the best choice for pure business people. And our main difference is that we are the only company in this space that guarantees business impact in 30 days. And we'll talk about that later. But you might have seen this out of MIT and Sloan that only about 10% of organizations are getting financial benefits from AI. This is a fundamental problem. Yet when Aible came at this problem, we said we have to deliver results in 30 days. And these are some examples of results we have delivered in such a short time, like 14% reduction to customer churn in the case of GEMS. In the case of Strive, 20% improvement in sales in 3 weeks. And you're going to see what we mean about that in a few minutes and how we are doing this. But fundamentally, think about the three questions you need to answer to figure out whether you can create value from AI. First, is the data good enough for AI creation? Your data may or may not be, though typically we find people are more negative about their data than they need to be. Often the data is good enough to create significant value, even if you think it's not good enough. And the reason behind it is most people have experience with data in a BI context, not in an AI context. AI is actually far more forgiving of data issues. Second, can the AI do better than the current process? And if it doesn't, you're not going to get to ROI. But finally, don't forget that if the end users will not use the AI, if they don't adopt it, you will not get any impact either. So these are the three key questions. Yet, if you look at the traditional approach to this problem, what we tend to do as an industry is spend months of effort trying to get the data AI ready. Then we put a lot of time trying to create the model and then finally deploy it. But remember, 50% of these models don't get deployed. This is out of Gartner. Then once the model gets deployed, at some point we find out, will end users see value? And then eventually, a while later, we find out, was it better than the current process? And thus did we get ROI? But all the risk is front-loaded and all of the costs are front-loaded. Aible felt that was the wrong approach. And so what we did is we said, look, we are going to very quickly figure out, is the data AI ready? And we're going to do it through automated processes. Then we want to very quickly figure out, what are you doing today? And can an AI trained on your data be better than what you're doing today? Why are we doing this? Because it gives us a definition of what is good enough data. Because if the data can help us do better than what we are doing today, then it's good enough. And then we very quickly get this into rapid prototyping in front of the end user, so the end users can confirm whether they're seeing value. And once end users see value, actually adoption happens naturally. And then at some point you go in and you confirm the value delivered by the AI and then adjust it. You add in more data, you tweak certain parameters, but fundamentally you keep iterating and improving it. But the goal here is, how can I de-risk this project in the first month or so? And you only invest after end users see value. And that's the fundamental basis for having the benefit always be greater than the cost. Now, let's take an example of this, how this played out in a real world. So Strive Group is a sales use case where they have a call center where they call out to customers and upsell them. And what we were able to do was get access to the data on day one. And within 14 days, we had models built, models deployed in their own cloud account, integrated into their CRM. And within 3 days after that, the end users were confirming they got to value. Why is that important? It's unless the end users see value, you can't force AI on people. The AI might do great in the lab, but it won't create result. And then finally, within 4 more days, so the end of the first week after deployment, the customer was able to confirm 20% improvement in actual sales metrics in that week. Now, this is not a case of taking some model metrics and extrapolating it to the data, because what you're really saying there is that if the future looks just like the past, and if people perfectly follow the AI, we will create this much value. And you see this out of vendors and projects all the time that, hey, we generated $100 million of value. But what they did was they took model metrics and said, what might happen? This is a case where you're objectively looking at the real delivered result. What was the on the ground after the user adoption? What was the result? And that was 20% improvement. But don't believe me, let's go to a quick video from Alistair so that you can hear this straight from the client.
We put the Aible scoring on the system so that everybody could see the Aible scoring. We didn't tell them what the Aible scoring meant, but we told them to start from the top and work down. And within the second day or third day of them calling, there was rumors going around that if somebody had an Aible scoring, a higher Aible scoring, they were getting more bookings from the higher Aible scorings than they were from the lower Aible scorings. And so the team came to us and then went, what is this scoring, and why do we struggle with the lower numbers, whereas with these higher numbers we get an immediate impact? So they could see it even without knowing what the Aible scoring was. Week on week, so from the previous week when we weren't Aible scoring to the week when we started Aible scoring, we had a 20% improvement in positive outcome. For us as a business, it could generate an enormous amount of revenue. It could be a real game changer for us. I think this last year and a half with COVID has meant that businesses have to have changed the way they work, and all it's done is accelerate how businesses that we've all had to change anyway, but it's accelerated how quickly we've had to change. But if you don't embrace technologies like this, you will get left behind.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Really appreciate this. But how are we doing this so fast? Well, Aible is the serverless first technology in this space. What does serverless first mean? It's essentially, rather than bringing up servers and running models on its own and then shutting down the servers manually, what you do is you change your model training code, your model deploy code into self-contained functions that Azure, AWS can just attach to any server and run and then shut down. The benefit of the serverless approach is that there is no waste. In the case of servers in our model training, what we are finding is often about 70% of the spend, 70% of the resource is going into things like moving data back and forth from Hadoop to redundant cluster store. It's going into network transfers. It's going into waiting for servers. And of course, because these models are getting trained sequentially, if you want to train hundreds of models and want to do it across many, many parameters, it takes a very, very long period of time. But with serverless, it's going straight into memory and getting trained very, very quickly. Now, of course, serverless has certain constraints, like there's some size constraints, how long it can run. And we have actually done some interesting things to solve that. We have also partnered with Intel to use some of their optimizations, which really help us run these model trainings and model execution much, much faster, much more efficiently on serverless. In fact, we are working with Intel to do a benchmark to prove out this efficiency of serverless versus server in a model training context. And we'll talk more about that later. One other really important aspect of serverless is you essentially bring your code to the data. So when Aible does serverless model training, we do not get access to the customer's data. The model training actually gets done in the customer's data. The functions are executing, the models are training, the models are deploying in the customer's AWS account, and all of the information is available in Jupyter notebooks with Python code. And we never get access to the username password of the customer's cloud account. It's just a CloudFormation template request that they approve in their AWS console, for example. Let's go to a quick demo now. So right now we are in Aible looking at a data set. This is a bank lending data set where we are trying to look at whether or not the bank approved a loan and create an AI which will help them understand how to approve loans better. So I just want Aible to explore all insights about loan approval. On the left-hand side, you can see what are the most important variables in this data set. So credit score is really important. Balance is really important. Annual income bucket is really important, but notice it's really only important when it's combined with balance. So the arcs here are the importance of the variable. The chords are the importance of the interactions between the variables. Now, on the right-hand side, Aible has brought up the most interesting graphs for me. I can click into anything and take a look at that graph, and it'll recommend different other graphs I might want to see. But I'm most intrigued by this ethnicity graph here, because ethnicity should not have shown up, because my loan approval process should not have had an issue with ethnicity. But notice on the left-hand side, it's telling me, yes, I have an issue. Interestingly enough, ethnicity is white has a negative impact on loan approved, and ethnicity is Hispanic has a negative impact. But if you don't specify the ethnicity, it has a positive impact. This is kind of an interesting thing. I'm going to add this to my presentation because I'm intrigued by this. And I might also look at the fact that ethnicity really matters even when the credit score is low. That is also an important one, because there is a pattern here specific to potentially poorer people that I want to really be aware of. The other interesting thing is there are 83 different models that have looked at this data. So when we say ethnicity Hispanic has a negative effect on loan approval, not just one model saw that. Every model from all these different types of models, from neural nets to Bayesian models to, there's a GBM there, 83 different models saw this as being important. So I'm going to be very worried about this right now. Let me skip over to the process of training an AI. And when we start with Aible on the model training side, on the left-hand side, you will see a baseline. This is what we have been doing till date. These are based on some questions we asked the customer. All these questions are customized to the use case. So we call that a blueprint. So in a banking situation, you will get banking questions, not hospital admissions questions. But the baseline tells us how we are doing today. So we're looking at how many loan prospects the bank received, what were the applications they reviewed, how many they funded, etc., and what was the profit. On the right-hand side is what Aible is telling me it can do based on what it's seeing in the data. Now, this depends on what is it that the bank is trying to achieve. So, for example, I might want to go in and change my business strategy here, because I'm looking at this thing and saying, hey, this is very profitable, but the AI is so effective, it's basically telling me to stop reviewing the vast majority of my loans. I'm not going to fire all my loan officers. And in fact, profitability may not be my goal. My goal may very well be, hey, what can I do with all the people I have? And you find that I could make a lot more money and I would be unprofitable. That doesn't sound right either. So let me go in and see what might happen if I want to increase my revenue by 50%. Can I do that? And this starts looking interesting that, hey, I can get 50% more revenue while reviewing far fewer loans and still be quite profitable. What is happening here is that actually different AI is being looked at. I'm just going to pin the drivers of the AI here, but different AI is being looked at as we change the strategy that we have, and we are able to adjust to the right AI. Now, remember, we were looking at ethnicity and we were concerned that there was ethnicity seemed to matter. And right now we are doing this without any equality constraints. But with Aible, I can go in and say, no, I really want to make sure that my loan rejection rate is the same for different ethnicities. I want to be fair. And my definition of fairness is my rejection rate should be the same. And Aible comes in and it can pull it off. And I just see that I reduced my profit a little bit. I reduced my revenue a little bit, but it's not that bad. If I compare that to no equality constraints, it's not that bad. I might even make a little more revenue. I can go into a different definition of fairness, like going in and saying, hey, I want to have the equal funded rate when somebody, like, think of it as approval rate being equal. And I can look at the economic implication of that. What you're doing here is looking at different strategic outcomes, strategic things that you care about, and Aible finds the right AI to deliver on that strategy for you, and it tells you what the economic impact of that would be. This is what allows us to get to economic value so quickly, and all these recommendations can be pushed right back into end applications like Salesforce, etc., so that you can act on it. Those predictions can be used across use cases across sales and marketing, operations, and support. Now, if you want to try this out for one of your use cases, remember that Intel benchmark I mentioned? Well, Intel is paying for up to 25 immediate impact projects where we'll take a real customer use case and get to delivery of value in 30 days. And Intel will pay for it if you take part in an anonymous benchmark. Please go sign up for this program today. Thank you.